look how crypto actually is now getting washed out. Would you not say that on a short-term basis, crypto is actually oversold? I think so. We might, if we spend the weekend just dawdling here and all of these things, all the cryptos are all, medium-term signals are all flashing bear and down. Well, that's probably the end of the move, which is kind of ironic. And that's usually how this game goes. Probably also another good analogy of this is if you actually look at things like Bitcoin price itself on like things like RSI studies. Does it not make sense now? Here's the RSI. How often does RSI out of the box, a 14-period RSI, how often does RSI actually get down into like the teens? Anybody who's actually studied RSI knows that it doesn't get down here very often. So if we got another breakdown here, who would it be likely that's actually shorting a move like that? It's the public. And then conversely, since we know RSI is oversold, what are we supposed to think if we actually get a W that comes in down here? That's the end of the bear move. And frankly speaking, look how that's one directional. I mean, gee whiz. And the interesting thing is we've only fallen. This is what kills me. From the absolute peak of the market, 25, to the absolute trough, 21. We've only fallen $4,000 here. I mean, God, I've seen days where Bitcoin moves $4,000 in one day. So I do find it a bit amusing how everybody and their brother's talking about the sky falling, and yet we really haven't moved that far, which is kind of ironic. But the point being, and again, what I really like to do is when I see people do the right thing and who are correct in their analysis, I really like to drive it home. So I'm going to say it again, hats off to Julian. He had the right idea here. He was thinking, man, this looks dangerous as hell. And he was absolutely spot on. So nice call there, Julian. And if you were able to ride on some of his trades, I think he said he was shorting things like Ethereum. I actually don't know what that looks like. Well, I mean, interestingly enough, can you guys see my funny little RSI study here? So we say that this M right up top here, that stopped the bull run. So right as of this point right here, I think the bulls all had to go on pause, which I think makes sense. And then the next M, all right, so that's the first one. And usually I like to color this like teal, so you can kind of tell the differences. Of course, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I will say that it's awfully easy to do this in hindsight. It's much more difficult to do it in real time. Second M coming in there. And that, was that through the 50 line? 52. Oh, yeah, there's 50 right there. So what that means is that was actually like your trade signal, that right there. And that was actually, interestingly enough, what letter of the alphabet does this make? If I change this to a line chart, maybe it's easier to see. Isn't that cool? I don't see an end to this current market state, what's happening here. And if anything, I think based on that political thing that we saw, that probably the better part of whatever rallies we were thinking about in the stock market and risk assets, I think those rallies are getting exhausted. And you can see, I mean, U.S. stock market's rallied a long way. Could we take maybe 2 or 3 months and just pull back against this low here? Absolutely. Does things like the Canadian stock market just absolutely get destroyed here? I could see that. Not very politically correct, but I could definitely see that. There's the Canadian stock market. Whoa, huge gap lower there. This is an interesting commentary the other day. Somebody was thinking about shorting the financials, which I don't think is a bad idea. Remember our TD trade? I would imagine it still probably looks like poop. Yeah, there it is. I think Zach was even thinking about reloading the shorts on this thing. Or do you go and short something like Apple? I don't know. That's a tough one. I like the Apple short trade. I also like the financial short trade. I would actually say that the finance, that like Apple's probably not gonna like absolutely puke out and collapse. I could see it do things like, in this coming recession, do things like just simply come back to 50% rules, fill in gaps, that kind of stuff. Just a normal technical move. But at the same time, things like these Canadian bank stocks, I could see them get absolutely destroyed here. Where we're going to do much more there. In fact, we just did the 50% retracement. I think this thing's going to come back down against these lows here. So I can understand that you say, Brian, I think there's probably more money to be made shorting these financial stocks, shorting the weak part of the market, shorting the vulnerable part of the market, Australia, Canada, Europe, that kind of stuff, than the big US blue chip stocks. I would agree with that.